C40's Mayors Summit, which is taking place in Johannesburg, South Africa, and we're talking to mayors and also other officials that have got an interest in what's going on, the discussions that are taking place, climate change amongst one of them, and the crucial issues that flow from that. And with me now is the Senior Advisor, Environment and Energy to the Mayor of London, and we say welcome to you, Matthew Pencharz. And London pretty much is where C40 City started, isn't it?
Yeah, we're very proud of being one of the founding cities for C40, and I think this conference, some 10 years on since it was first founded, it's quite an exciting moment. It's we have our first chair from the global south and from the developing world, and when we think about the potential cities have, we are increasingly urbanising, moving towards 70% of the population, and that is mainly in the developing world. I mean, I come from a city, London, which is developing very fast for a Western city, and certainly the fastest in Europe by some distance, but compared to some developing cities, that pales into insignificance. So when you think about the proportion of action that can be taken, it's clearly very important that we engage in the developing world. So it's great to be here in Johannesburg, and also to have a new chair, also from the south.
So, more than 10 years ago, Mayor Livingstone had this idea, few cities got together. How has London, in the end, benefited from this entity, which is C40 Cities?
Well, the best example we have is some of our energy retrofitting programs. So, London's buildings, it's an old city, many of them are Victorian, are very leaky, they're incredibly energy inefficient, and energy prices are becoming quite an issue in the UK. So it's very important we try and mitigate that by putting in energy efficient measures. And we, through the C40, we set up some of the programs that are now delivering the biggest retrofit scheme London's ever seen. So something called Refit, which is a program to retrofit our public sector buildings, was on very much with the C40, seeing what other cities had done, seeing what other ideas, so we didn't have to reinvent that wheel and drive that programme forward. And it's now so successful, in fact, that the central UK government is wanting to roll that out across the UK.
What do you think is the strength of a grouping such as the C40?
Well, it's so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, effectively, and that's what it boils down to. We don't have to spend lots of time and money and effort working out solutions to problems that lots of us already face and lots of us have already turned our attentions to. So we can share our experiences on congestion charging and those kind of mechanisms, but equally cities can share with us their experience on, for example, I said earlier, energy retrofit.
So Johannesburg, are there lessons that we can learn from London, and is there things that London can see that we're doing that perhaps you can take back to what's happening in London?
Well, I mean, I've not seen BRT in action before. Many South American countries are introducing them. I've not actually seen it. I saw it yesterday on the way to the Apartheid Museum, and that's a very interesting idea. I think the practical difficulties of London streets, which are very narrow, they aren't very wide, might make that difficult, but we have new developments which are coming forward. There's always potential for that, and I think that is worth a look. It's much cheaper and quicker to install than a new tram line or very, very expensive underground lines. But equally, when it comes to things that London could take away, I'm sure there's lots that we could offer. I mean, Johannesburg is also developing very fast, and as is London, but is already a city that is, it's been here for 100 or so years. So it's a matter of also, I think, retrofitting some of the older stuff you have, but also looking forward to new development, and that's very much the same problems London has, and I'm sure there's a great deal that we could share.
You're the advisor to the mayor. How important is it to have a mayor that fully buys into this C40's project? Well,
the mayor, we hosted the C40 Siemens Climate Leadership Awards back in September, and he gave a speech in which he bigged up London's green economy, but he also said shamelessly, I will steal any good idea that you guys come up with. And that, of course, is what C40 is up to, and the mayor understands that this agenda is about improving the quality of life for our citizens, for our residents, and since these are all politicians, they want to be elected and re-elected, that's their bread and butter is to improve the quality of life, to reduce their costs through energy efficiency measures, to reduce their costs by having new locally generated energy which is cheaper than and more reliant than stuff off the main grid. And this is very much what Boris his agenda is. And the co-benefit of that is huge carbon dioxide reductions.
One of the things that struck me living in London was how, I don't know if compliant is the word to use, but perhaps the people do recycle, people do put stuff in the right bins. And this is a culture that some developing countries are not really into yet. How do you change the mindset of people? How is London able to teach people that this is the way to go?
Well, it takes its time. I would say that London, from a very low base 10 years ago, has done well, and in fact the UK has done quite well at raising from an embarrassing amount of recycling to a not embarrassing recycling, but there's still a long way to go. I think it's a long cultural thing. You can get the low-hanging fruit, people who are engaged quite easily, but once you get to difficult properties, it's quite hard. So old flats which don't have the infrastructure for recycling, but it is a lot of engagement, and I think a lot of it has got to be a financial imperative, in fact. So the amounts of money you can save through your local taxes, as it would be in the UK council tax, through more sensible disposal of waste. So using it as a resource rather than sticking it in the ground or burning it. And I think that's probably the best way into people's pockets, realistically.
And what do you see the future of C40s as if it's to continue to succeed?
I think we have to see more expansion into more developing cities where the new economies are growing. So it's great that we announced today that Cape Town, Nairobi and Dar es Salaam have joined the network. These are cities with more than 3 million people. These are cities which are the powerhouses of their regions in Africa. And we need to have more cities like that, but also in China and in India and the developing world where the future, frankly, is lying. I represent a very fast-growing city in Europe. You know, we are growing very, very quickly for our history, but compared to some of these ones I just named, it's quite insignificant. So that's where the excitement is. And as we become more urbanised, the potential for C40 to work together to improve our economies, to make us healthier and wealthier places, and mitigate and adapt to climate change, that's where it is. Because our national governments are further away from the people and aren't as responsible and often buried, frankly, in international negotiations. But mayors and city governments are just getting on with it.
All right, and perhaps finally, because networking is a really big thing within C40, what sort of networks have you sort of clung into or attached yourself to, and what difference have those networks made for London?
Well, on the buildings retrofit one, we are very much involved in. We have quite a lot of work to do in London with our Victorian buildings, which are energy efficient. That's one of them. We are going to be leading the district energy one. So we have a target for 25% of London's energy to be generated locally by 2025. That's quite a challenging target to meet. We're looking further forward with our population growth in London and with national energy policy perhaps not quite meeting the energy needs of the future in the UK. You know, the Mayor can't stand by and let that happen, so we want to see more district energy, and that's a network we will be co-leading on. Climate positive project, so we have a development very close to City Hall in London around the Elephant and Castle, which is our first climate positive development in the UK, and I know President Clinton's been quite interested in that project as well, and we hope that there'll be more of those going forward. We are part of the Connecting Delta Cities as a city existing on the sea, and we had a very interesting meeting yesterday chaired by the Mayor of Rotterdam, which was about moving that network forward. And obviously we've seen some pretty spectacular weather events, and there's a weather event going on in the UK right now, not affecting London directly, but just a few miles away there's been some pretty bad flooding because of atrocious weather. We've had about 2 months where we've had 6 months of rain fall in a very short amount of time, and clearly not managing that very well. And then there's the green growth. We very much see that this is an economic argument, taking climate action agenda. So we are in that. Our own green economy is growing 4 or 5% a year. It employs about 160,000 people in London. That's growing towards 200,000 quite soon. And we feel that is very much part of the message we want to send. You know, it's not about wanting to live in a cave. It's about wanting to enjoy the lifestyle we have now, but in a more environmentally sustainable way. And then the electric vehicles and more low emission vehicles as well. We have an air quality problem in addition to wanting to address our carbon emissions. So we're pulling all the levers we can to stimulate the low emission vehicle market, and that is also something my officers and I are involved in. That was a very long answer.
And of course, there are lots of bicycles that you see in London, but we're going to have to leave it there. Matthew Pencharz, Senior Advisor, Environment and Energy to the Mayor of London at GLA. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us today.